Rob Natelson is a constitutional expert at that, well, not to be very respected outfit, the Independence Institute. Thanks for being with us again.
It's good to be back with you, John.
Glad you could ruin your reputation with us.
Yeah.
Hey, I wanted to talk a little bit about the national popular vote and nations that do use it. But first, you talked to me a little earlier about a decision that had something to do with one of our reporters, Todd Shepard, who did this incredible story on business people, just small business guys, who didn't know they had to file some stupid form or fill out this thing or pay that fee, and were hit with hundreds of thousands of dollars in excessive fines. One woman who owned a small motel owed $200,000 because she was negligent in filling out a workers' comp form, and she just didn't know she needed to. She was in the wrong, but paying the fee would have kicked her out of business.
Actually, John, $841,000.
$841,000.
Well above the gross receipts for the hotel for the entire year. This is an incredible story, and it was broken by Complete Colorado, which is, of course, the journalistic arm of the Independence Institute. About 3 years ago, our investigative reporter found 3 different businesses that had been hit with these 6-figure fines for failure to comply fully with the workers' comp law. Now, at least you say, well, they didn't comply with the workers' comp law. They also weren't notified. There was no notification in some cases for years. And so the result is that they incur these enormous fines. The outfit that owned the hotel decided to defend itself under the argument that the 8th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution protects businesses against excessive fines.
Is that cruel and unusual punishment? Is that what we're talking about?
That's the same amendment.
Right.
The amendment has 3 parts. It deals with cruel and unusual punishment. It deals with excessive bail, but it also deals with excessive fines. And what has just happened in a decision issued on June 3rd is that the Colorado Supreme Court has decided that, yes, even though this business is incorporated, it's protected by the 8th Amendment protection against excessive fines.
So for all those people who say corporations are not people, this was a woman who I might be a first-generation immigrant or second-generation immigrant, trying to keep her small business together, and it was her corporation that was defended. This is a huge win.
It is a huge win, although it's qualified somewhat. Now, admittedly, I think from the facts as recited by the court, I think she and her corporation were negligent. They should. I've been in business. I've paid workers' comp. You just have to do it, You
have to know about it, too.
You have to know about it, too, but they did know about it. They've been warned previously. So if the question here isn't guilt. The question is whether the fine is disproportionate to the offense. Now, you think of the people who get fined as a result of holding up somebody, robbing somebody, first offense. They get fined, and it can be pretty steep, but not $841,000. And so, and you're right. The state argued, well, the corporations aren't protected. There's an important thing to remember about protections of the Bill of Rights, John. A decision by a group of people to incorporate is pretty well driven by the local state law. You're pretty well pushed to either incorporate or not incorporate. Whether you're incorporated or not should have no relevance at all as to whether you're protected by the Bill of Rights. And the Colorado Supreme Court, to its credit, said that in this instance, the fact that this small business operated under the corporate law didn't take away its protection under the 8th Amendment.
Let me ask you about the national popular vote.
Sure.
And I know you're a big fan of this idea for a lot of reasons.
Oh, yeah.
But I want to ask one question. By the way, the national popular vote just says that Colorado is now in the compact, and if we get enough states in the compact to get 270 electoral votes into it, then whoever wins the popular vote of the nation gets those 270 and becomes president. In other words, our vote in Colorado doesn't count. If California decides for somebody, they're going to get.
That's right.
They're going to get our 10 electoral votes.
We no longer choose our own presidential electors. The presidential electors are selected by the campaign committee of the candidate that wins the most votes of anyone. Now that's not a majority of the votes. Okay, that's a plurality. So you got a 4-candidate field. It could be 35%.
Just to clarify, we will have 10 electoral votes soon.
Yeah.
And we have 9 now. All right. You said polarity. what we have the same thing here. We can have 50 guys running for the election. Whoever wins the most in the state gets all of those electoral votes. Give me a couple countries that have the national popular vote outside of the United States. Well, what can we look forward to?
This is really interesting, John, because before I got into it, apparently nobody had actually looked to other countries to see which countries elect their presidents by a bare plurality. Again, we're not talking about a majority. We're not talking about France where they have a runoff election and you have to get a majority. Under the National Popular Vote Initiative and under a proposed constitutional amendment recently introduced, and the guy or gal who gets the most votes wins.
Right.
Now, what actually happens? In countries like Honduras, Mexico, Nicaragua, Venezuela, Paraguay, the Philippines, Venezuela, that have this system, is that you get fractured election with multiple candidates. Okay,
and what candidates?
Multiple candidates. Multiple candidates, and so very often, a candidate with a small plurality that the vast majority of people voted against wins. Example: last month, they had the presidential election in Panama. That's one of the countries that follows this system. The winner got 33% of the vote. The runner got 31% of the vote. That means that 2/3 of the voters voted against this guy, and they got him. That's what national popular vote does.
Let me kick this back to you to make sure I'm following you. So, since you have all these candidates, whoever gets the plurality wins, and that's fine. But if there's several different candidates, that means the guy who wins is somebody that most people haven't voted for.
That's right.
He might be most popular, but he's not the winner. But can't you argue the same thing when it comes to president? In that we have 9 electoral votes here. Whoever wins those votes in Colorado gets all 9 of our electoral votes. Even if the difference is 31% to 30%, and over 2/3 voted against this guy, the guy still gets all 10 votes.
And that's also true in gubernatorial elections in most states. Here's one of the differences, okay? Our parties are held together. They're all part of a national entity. They're held together by the need to get a majority in the Electoral College. Now, it's true that the winner of the majority of the Electoral College doesn't always get the popular vote, but generally comes very close and gets far more votes than is routine in national popular vote countries. For example, Donald Trump got 46%, which is a lot better than 33%, right? So the fact that that these parties have to compete on the national level prevents the state elections from fragmenting. Even so, we do see in state elections a very dangerous phenomenon, or a phenomenon that could be dangerous if it's translated to the national level, and that is regional splits, right? Upstate versus downstate, New York. Upstate versus downstate, Illinois.
California is a perfect example.
And Colorado.
Right.
Denver and Boulder versus everybody else.
So those who don't believe it, by the way,
the Electoral College is designed partly to prevent those kinds of splits.
Help me understand, because you look at a map of Colorado in the last presidential election, Denver, Boulder area, it's all right there, and a couple of ski towns where are very elitist, but all the rest was solid red. Some of them at 80% for Trump. The whole eastern plains, all the way up and down, it was over 55% for Trump in the lowest county. All right, so you have these little pockets, but all went to all of our electoral votes went to Hillary. So these guys are they disenfranchised?
Well,
and if only we had the popular vote, the national popular vote, at least their votes would count towards the grand total. That's the promise.
If that's viewed to be a problem in Colorado, what we can do is we can allocate our electors the way Maine and Nebraska do. We can allocate them by congressional district and divide them that way. But the result at the federal level of having a system whereby somebody with 31% of the vote, the last free election in Venezuela before Chavez, the winner got 31% of the vote. I mean, those kinds of elections at a national level are very dangerous. We see this, by the way, in Mexico, this kind of regional split. The only time that kind of regional split occurred in America, it led to the Civil War.
I want to make sure I'm getting this. I don't know if you have these numbers off the top of your head. What is the largest gap between the popular vote for a guy who didn't win the popular vote? In other words, for the president who did not win the popular vote, there's George W., there was, of course, Trump, and I don't know how many others. How close were the popular votes, though?
Generally, well, in Trump, the difference was 2%. To answer your question, the widest spread was between Rutherford Hayes and Samuel Tilden in 1876, 3% of the vote.
All right,
Just 3% of the vote.
All right. Now, wait. I started to get the picture. So here, with the system we have, the guy who didn't win the popular vote but became president, the mix was 3% difference. All right, that's how. So he was right up there. In Venezuela and other places, it was 30% of the vote.
That's
so
right.
all got it. Now I'm starting to understand. Keep going.
Okay. Well, the bottom line here is this is a prescription for third world elections. I mean, it's not just that the winner is someone that the overwhelming majority of people vote against. The system also encourages fraud, right? Because if you know that you can, just by piling up your votes, for example, in the big cities, collect a plurality in a fragmented field, then there are all kinds of incentives for fraud, for vote inflation. This is the kind of thing you see in third world countries. This is not a system that we want to replicate in the United States.
And to add some meat to that, imagine if it's going to be a close presidential election, and you've got one Secretary of State who's willing to do anything. Oh, let's call it, I don't know, Illinois.
Yeah.
And so they manufacture and they change the numbers and they put something out. If you want to get that, you can
right.
you can grab that. So they can do that. So in other words, that one person can change the whole election, and it won't be found out until the guy is sworn in.
Even if it is found out, it doesn't make any difference. And the reason is under the National Popular Vote Compact, every state Secretary of State must accept the totals from every other Secretary of State, no matter how fraudulent they're known to be.
So, no matter how bad we know, we know your Secretary of State is off the charts. We'll do anything for it. We have no way to audit you. We have no way, our system. So here in Colorado, where Wayne Williams got an award for the cleanest elections, if the Secretary of State here wants to look someplace else, she can't.
That's right.
Beautiful stuff. Yeah. People want to learn more. Where?
IndependenceInstitute.org. Go to the Constitution tab.
And be sure to return that phone call. We'll talk to you next week. We'll see you then.